Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest aliens and UFOs video. Well, I thought I had finished this series with my last go around, my last video from last week, but as it turns out, I had a very exciting thing happen to me as I was on an airplane going to Las Vegas just the other day. I was teasing this, in fact, on one of my last live streams, that I will talk about this more, about my experience, but here's essentially what happened. And again, you'll see why I wanted to share it here exclusively on my Aliens and UFOs video, because I believe this is the very first time, I'm not 100% sure yet, but pretty close. I think this is the very first time I had seen a strange light, maybe UFO, in the sky. Great stuff. I can't believe what I saw, and I'm going to try to describe and share as much information as I can, but talk about having something here for this playlist that happens to do with aliens and UFOs. Amazing stuff. I had no idea that morning when I woke up, and then was later on the flight over on Southwest from Austin to Las Vegas, that I would have the chance to potentially see a UFO. So let's go ahead and let's talk about all that information here, and then that way you'll get to hear essentially what happened on my trip. First off, I wanted to mention this. Unfortunately, I do not have like any video or photographs of the actual encounter. It happened in the briefest of moments. I would say not even half a second when it came to that particular moment. And so it was just completely off guard. It just caught me right at the moment. I didn't even have my phone out when this was happening, because on a 3-hour flight, there's only so much that you do on the flight, instead of, let's say, taking pictures outside of the cabin window. But let me drum up at least first on that. That's why you'll see mainly throughout this video slash almost podcast, the same set of pictures over and over again, to give you an idea from my vantage point how the experience looked like, at least out of my cabin window. So here's essentially what happened. I was going to fly out from Austin to Las Vegas last Friday. This was going to be actually, on Monday. My apologies, because I just arrived on Friday. So it was on Monday that I was going to fly out to Las Vegas. It was going to be in the afternoon when the sun was still going to be up here in the Austin area, and probably stretching out towards the flight itself all the way to Las Vegas. And so I had no plans at all to take a night flight. But as it turns out, when I arrived at the airport there in Austin, all of a sudden, whenever I tried to log in, whenever I tried to essentially check in and be able to get my ticket printed out and so on, that's when it told me that you are actually more than 4 hours out. I had no idea, but it seems like just a little short while before, all of a sudden, my flight had gotten changed. It got changed from being at that time period that I was expecting it to be, to now being 4 to 5 hours later. Yes, indeed, it was one of those moments where it was like, oh boy, now I'm going to be at the airport for this time period. That meant that by the time we essentially got out, it was going to be nighttime. I try not to take nighttime flights, mainly because it's a waste of a day whenever I do that, whenever I go to Vegas or anywhere else, because I try to enjoy that day as well at the location I'm traveling to. But I had no choice. In this case, Southwest changed things on the flight. And so here I was now flying out of Austin, going to Las Vegas, almost at 10 o'clock that night. Crazy stuff. In any case, we got on the flight, and then I was there. The plane took off. In fact, you'll probably see a video of the takeoff here in a little bit. I love posting that stuff on here as a way to share that experience with my fellow fans here. And then we were up in the air. Luckily enough, there was not too many seats filled within this flight. In fact, the flight attendants told us that there were only 36 people on board. So how about that? Almost like a VIP status. I think that helped answer my question earlier as to why my flight was delayed. My guess is that there were so few people on the previous flight that Southwest just ended up canceling it and grouping other people that also had, let's say, a less than filled flight into the very last flight that went out into Las Vegas. And what made me suspect that more is because I noticed it was filled with about maybe half a dozen more flight attendants that were all taking seats. So I'm guessing that they were flying out to Las Vegas to then be able to work from there and so on. In any case, we got up in the air, and as we were flying out, I would probably say this was around halfway through. Austin to Las Vegas is about a 3 hour flight. At the longest end, at the shortest end, it's about 2.5 hours. I guess it just depends on the flight path and the turbulence and other type of delays associated with it. But yes, about halfway through, and normally what I do with regards to my flights, especially with Southwest, one of their benefits is they have free movies. If you have any phone, any iPad, maybe any other type of electronic device that connects to Wi-Fi, the Wi-Fi is free, and they help stream movies for free too. They have a huge selection now. I thought I saw like 56 films that you can pick from, and they also have TV shows. So you'll always see me watching one of those films or maybe a TV show during the flight because it's so fantastic. I mean, you can't stream anything else. You can't stream your Netflix account or your Hulu account because of the fact that you don't have any connection, any cellular connection, and it won't connect to the Wi-Fi. So Southwest does this to ensure that, yeah, you'll have something at least to pass the time, and it's free. So by all means, whenever I'm on any flight, that's where you'll see me watching a movie or a TV show. I mentioned this because, as I stated earlier, I did not have my camera ready for when the next moment happened. Instead, my camera is my phone. I don't carry a separate camera. It just makes more sense to shoot everything on my actual phone itself as opposed to lugging around another separate camera on there. So I was there just watching a movie. It happened to be Godzilla versus Kong in this case. More on that here later on. You'll see my second review associated with that film. So there I was just watching it, and then all of a sudden it was like I don't know, something told me or something was nudging me. You know how you have that almost sixth sense to all of a sudden look out the window or look in a direction where you think you should look when you weren't looking before? That's essentially what happened at that very moment. All of a sudden, for whatever reason, I decided to look out my cabin window. And again, you're getting an idea of what my perspective was. Drew these pictures here, and then bam, all of a sudden, a very bright white circular light. So again, bright white circular light, pretty large in fact. If I had to guess, it was probably like the size of a van, like a large van, something along those lines. It may have been bigger, kind of hard to gauge based on the distance. Again, this was a fraction of a second, but all of a sudden, a very bright white light, again, in this pitch black darkness, all of a sudden it went zooming past my window. It wasn't like right next door, like when it came to the wingtip or anything like that, but it wasn't far away either. I would say it was probably be another airplane or two's length away, something along those lines. A very bright light went suddenly swooshing past, like very fast. And if it was, a best way to describe it is because we were actually in some clouds at that time. It wasn't cloudy like 100%, but it wasn't devoid of clouds too, the area we were at. So essentially, it was drifting in and out of clouds. That made the illumination from that very bright white light stand out even more. It wasn't lightning either because there was not any storms. It wasn't another plane. I hope not, because that would have been a very, very close plane. Instead, it was this ballish white of light that all of a sudden zoomed past, and it created a very clear white illumination within the dark night in terms of the black night, and then also the cloud itself. All of a sudden, the cloud lifted up in illumination, and again, the cloud surrounding this white light caused it to be much more noticeable than, let's say, if it wasn't there at all, because the remnants of that light kind of like bled into the rest of the cloud itself. But all of a sudden, it was bam, very fast, very quick. It went from left to right in a very straight light, in a very straight line, in other words. And when that happened, it was gone in an instant. Best example I could give is this. If you've seen the movie Superman Returns, you'll notice that there's a moment whenever that NASA huge airplane, the one that was being taken off from Earth to go up into space, when all of a sudden it goes on a crash course. There's a moment where Lois is gravity free, like her and the rest of the cabin, the rest of the people there are all floating. All of a sudden, she decides in one split moment to look out the window, and she sees a red blur go by very quickly. Not quickly enough for her not to realize what it is, but quickly enough for her to only see it just for the briefest of moments. That's exactly what happened to me. Like when I decided, for whatever reason, in that split moment to look outside my window, in that same speed, there was that very bright white light that went way past, way fast. And then when that was gone, I immediately tried to get my phone. Well, again, I was watching Godzilla vs. Kong at the moment. I immediately tried to get my phone up and then trying to angle it somewhere behind me to see maybe if there was another view on it. But the way it was going, the straight line that it had, it wasn't moving, let's say, in a manner where I could see it go off in the horizon from my perspective. No, in this case, it was now well behind. At the speed it was going, it would have been well behind the plane and then some. So there was no way for me to be able to take a picture of it afterward. But lo and behold, I could not believe, I was thinking of it afterward, moments afterward, I could not believe that I saw something. I saw something along the lines of what could be a very bright light / UFO right there in the middle of the clouds, whooshing by my cabin window, all in the dead of night, again, traveling from Austin to Las Vegas. I have no idea if somebody were to ask me, where was I in terms of the geography? What state, in other words, was I flying over? I have no idea. Somebody would have to try to make sure that, they would have better coordinations than I would when it comes to that. All I know is that there were no lights on the bottom. So in other words, it was just pitch black darkness all the way around. You'll know when you're flying over a city nighttime because you can see the city. Even though you're way up in the sky, when it comes to those flights, you can still see any city below you. Here, though, it was just pitch black all the way down, except for the clouds that we were going through. The airplane wing itself has its own little lights that turn on and off, obviously to showcase some kind of a blinking, so that way there's no confusion, like nobody else that accidentally runs into the plane, let's say, out there in the night sky. So those were the only things on and off. And then every now and then, I would see the airplane turn on an exterior light. I'm guessing that the pilots were examining the wings or looking at something else on the wings themselves to figure out that everything was okay. That's why you'll see all of a sudden, like, there's more of a whitish light on some of the pictures from an area of the plane, because again, I'm guessing that they're making sure everything else is going good. But no, nothing else outside of the wings would have illuminated this light. It was a separate source. It was external. It was absolutely by itself. I saw it as a white circular light. It was pretty bright too. I wouldn't say it was like bright as the sun, but it wasn't dark either. And whenever it went by, it was clear enough in that split moment for me to see again that it would have been large. It was probably about 2 airplane lengths away, maybe a little less from our area, and it was there in the clouds, and there was no way that it could have been anything else in terms of another airplane or any other type of flying vehicle, because that would have been way too close for comfort when it comes to that. But yeah, just wanted to share my experience here for everyone when it comes to this amazing set of news. Who knew? Here I was getting delayed 5+ hours when it came to my original flight, and then me thinking that it was bad luck, and then all of a sudden here I was there on the plane for whatever moment, looking out the window for whatever reason, and then seeing that bright light that could be my very first UFO experience. How about that? Pretty awesome. No, when it comes to that, I had no idea that that was going to happen that time. And I still have no idea how my mind or anything else influenced me to look out the window at that very moment. There I was, entranced basically by watching the Godzilla versus Kong movie. I had not looked out the window for any other reason once I was, starting the movie. And all of a sudden I decided to look out, and then that's when I saw that very bright white light whooshing by. Great stuff. But yeah, just wanted to share that experience with everyone here for all my aliens and UFO fans. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. Anyone else seen something similar when you were on a plane, maybe flying out at the nighttime too? If so, then please post those comments below. I'd love to see what your experience is like too. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care. Bye.